This is Surface Exposure. Here presents the stories, insights, and efforts of those who interface with the natural world, its inhabitants, resources, and temper. In this episode, I am joined by a lifelong conservationist, Dexter Kopas. At the time of recording, Dexter serves as the volunteer coordinator for an organization called Wild Arizona. Based in Tucson, Arizona, Wild Arizona formed when the Arizona Wilderness Coalition joined forces with the Grand Canyon Wildlands Council. For decades, these two organizations have been instrumental in recognizing and protecting wilderness areas and natural resources of Arizona. Today, Wild Arizona carries that torch. Wild Arizona's mission is to protect, unite, and restore wildlands and waters across Arizona and beyond for the enrichment and health for humans, and to ensure native plants and animals a lasting home in nature. Wild Arizona organizes and amplifies multi-community voices of support for legislation, advocates for conservation policy, and cultivates stewardship, awareness, and well-being through outdoor volunteerism, science, and education. Easy enough to say, but what actually does it take to protect our commonly cherished wilderness areas and natural resources? How do we implement impactful conservation efforts that benefit and meet the needs of both natural environments and society? And how can people become involved and make an impact in their day-to-day lives? In this episode, Dexter Kopas illustrates issues involving public lands and resources in Arizona, then describes the campaign set in place by Wild Arizona in response. Dexter shares his experiences from his years doing conservation work, reveals bigger picture insights, and the nitty-gritty details of making resource protection happen. Be sure to visit wildarizona.org to stay up to date on conservation efforts, opportunities to participate, educational material, and further resources. Wild Arizona unifies and empowers people so that their actions can make an impact on our cherished natural spaces. If you value public lands, wilderness areas, and other natural spaces that are typically free to use, check out Wild Arizona. They can help direct your energies to an impactful cause. I'll leave their link, along with other resources in the show notes. One more thing before the episode starts. Do you like long, enduring, ultra beautiful bicycle rides out in the desert? Make sure to check out the Sonoran Ultra Endurance Ride, a 315-mile self-supported bicycle loop showcasing geographical and culturally significant areas in southern Arizona. Sour kicks off in Tucson annually in March. Good bicycle weather that time of year. Their website states that the 2026 race starts March 6, 2026. Don't miss it. And to the main feature. Here we go. So, you've worked with Wild Arizona, a nonprofit doing conservation work in Arizona, and you've worked with them and served with them pretty much since their inception in 2019.
Close to that. So it was, in its current incarnation as Wild Arizona, it was formed by the merging of two different organizations. There was the Grand Canyon's Wildland Council, and they were, operated around the Grand Canyon and trying to conserve land around the Grand Canyon and, trying to prevent things like uranium mining in the Grand Canyon. And I think they were somewhat newer than the other organization that they joined with was Arizona Wilderness Coalition, which was kind of involved all over the state and primarily with the goal of trying to protect and to expand wildernesses in Arizona. And so they came together in 2019 into one organization, Wild Arizona. And I was on the first field crew part of that. So there was a few people Jonathan and Brian, Jonathan Pat, Brian Stoltz, Jonathan who's still here, and who did some like on the ground conservation work and doing volunteer events and trail assessments, and I can get into what these things mean, but yeah, this is the first time in 2020 they got like a crew of like 4 people, and it's expanded since then into now being kind of two different crews.
Okay, and then so what can you describe the mission and alignment of the organization at the start then, early on, and then how it has evolved and changed, and where the organization has grown to, and to what it looks like today.
Yeah, totally. So it's definitely increased in the scope of kind of the on the ground work that we've done. It's kind of in the beginning there was kind of a disconnect between these two organizations a bit, as is natural when you take two organizations and put them together. There's kind of like a field side, like the people who do like a lot of it is just trail maintenance, maintaining trails to maintain access so people can get outdoors and appreciate and form that bond with our more natural non-human surroundings, and non-human dominated, and then kind of a campaign side that was more involved with things like trying to create wilderness areas, like through legislation, or to get people involved in knowing about the rehabilitation of wolves in Arizona and New Mexico, the return of wolves as ecosystem after they were exterminated in the last century. And so it's kind of been, I'd say that the evolution since I've been here is like the expansion of that that field-based side. It was 4 people, and then we usually grow to a peak of around a dozen people in the winter time, and then things naturally ebb a bit too in the summertime when it's hotter here, and there's more work opportunities for people in northern latitudes. That our crew gets smaller in the summer, but yeah, it's expanded, and now I think we have a reputation around the state as a very reliable conservation crew, can do a lot of wide variation of work and operate in a lot of different conditions. So that's expanded, and then also there's been intentionally more of this kind of mixing between the field side and the campaign side of the organization. For example, that one of our former crew leaders, Nico Lorenzen, he does now tons of our campaign work and is working on a lot of wonderful projects around trying to preserve habitat and educate. And yeah, he started just being a crew leader on one of our crews, like this, the one that you're on with Eric, doing trail work and working on invasive species management and riparian restoration projects, doing like erosion control type things, and all different manners of public land, into now having this outreach and campaign job that he has now. Some really Najoni Baldwin, used to be on the crew, is now our volunteer coordinator, and then I was on the crew, I was a crew leader, and now I'm doing more of the volunteer coordination side of things. So I'm hosting some volunteer events around nearby to Tucson. So yeah, the organization is very fluid, but currently kind of our structure with running these volunteer events to because the goal is to try to get people involved in like the work that is necessary to maintain these public spaces that so that they're free to use, and then also people care about them. These volunteer events, we kind of have me running a lot of the stuff in more southeastern Arizona because I live in Tucson, and Joni lives in Phoenix, and her running more of the stuff that's in central northern Arizona. Where's it going with that? And then also our that's another thing that has developed is when I came in 2020, the organization, Wild Arizona, had just run, just one time the past summer, no, never mind, it was 2 summers ago because that was 2020, they had no program in 2020, a youth conservation corps. So this is run out in the Chiricahua Mountains and down in the southeasternmost corner of Arizona, a high mountain range, bringing in high schoolers from around the country to for 6 weeks, get paid to do different conservation work in the area and learn about opportunities in that, and jobs in that, but also just kind of a different lifestyle of living outdoors and being in close proximity to natural spaces. And that I came in, started crew leading that program in 2021, and I'm now about to start in my 4th year in it. And that program has expanded, and actually I wouldn't really say it's expanded. It's still the same number of people, still only currently hosting 9 or 10 high schoolers, but it has gotten more established and I'd say just better run. I mean, it was already better run. I can already tell this is something wonderful that I want to be a part of. When you find something, and I've not found too many things where I'm like, oh wow, I can do something here that's very useful, and it's hard, but I guess maybe it's like some sort of calling in a way, but I'm sure you feel this with your farm that you work with, and that your this community that you're establishing and roots that you're planting. That it's like, oh wow, I can do something with this.
It's impactful.
It's impactful, yeah.
And you're making an impact.
Yeah, and I can see that. When you work with kids, you can it's not like with someone who's 50 or 60 or even my age often, and I'm definitely fault of this, as many people are. It could just be harder to change yourself. It can be harder to learn new things, to learn new perspectives. We all get stuck in our ways, but if you're 15 years old, it's really easy to kind of take in a new viewpoint, and I see that in these kids. You can kind of offer them a new perspective. It could be someone who's never been to the Southwest. They've never seen cactus. Could be someone who's lived in a rural town, who's never met anyone outside of their small town really, and they meet someone from Florida, and it's completely alters their perspective on the country even. So
just through their getting out in the field and doing these conservation projects through the Youth Conservation Corps program.
Yeah, I think so it brings in kids from all over the country. Anyone who's a U.S. citizen can apply to it. Yeah, and so we try to get a balance between people who are local, Southeast Arizona, Tucson, even more local than that, from small towns of Douglas and Sierra Vista and Bowie, mixed between people who are local like that, or people from all over the country. So people from Alaska and Massachusetts and Colorado and Florida, and you get all those people together into one place, and you get people from a lot of different viewpoints, people from conservative backgrounds, from more liberal backgrounds, people from different races, different cultures, different, you know, people from, you know, a lot of different kinds of people who are in this country. You get them together and you get them to connect over doing work outside, and you know, like it's an easy way to connect with them. You know, it's your experience when you know that someone like has your back, and that they're going to, you know, you've eaten food together, you've had this person cook food for you, you cook food for them, you've asked them to, you know, work on this drain on a trail with you, and they've done it with you. You know, there's a trust that you can build, and then also a trust that just forms from having this small community, like these, you know, 9 or 10 high schoolers and 12 and like 5 crew leaders become like in kind of fairly insulated community during these 6 weeks, and so you kind of it forms a bit of a family in a way.
Yeah, almost like a tribe. Everyone moves at the same speed, and in your group, your small family.
Yeah.
Yeah, if one person's falling behind or struggling or challenged, it's the entire group's challenge, and they all.
Right.
Yeah, you're all cohesive like that.
Yeah.
It's a really beautiful experience.
And that can be challenging in some ways, to like, you know, have someone who has tons of backpacking experience and like super fit, lots of experience in the outdoors, and wants to like push themselves and do this big backpacking trip or whatever. And it's like, you know, and there's someone else out there who's like never camped before, you know. So I think what the program doesn't maybe, although you're saying, you know, you have to like, you know, kind of pick up the slack of the slowest member or whatever, you know.
You all move at the same speed.
Yeah. It's all
common goal.
Yeah, it's what's the word? It's like from all according to ability to all according to need kind of ethos. Yeah, it means that we can't do, you know, maybe the most you know, the craziest backpacking trip or whatever, but like try to find a balance of like still challenging everyone and getting like a different variety of experience levels in what we're doing. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
It's special. Yeah, these groups are going out in their public lands doing conservation-oriented projects such as trail work, habitat management, and making an impact there on that place. And these places are valuable to the community at large. These are places in our backyard that we like to go out and be with nature and go recreate.
Yeah.
And then their experience in itself, as you're describing, is valuable. Just the people and the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of human connection and connection to nature. There's what was I going to say about that? Yeah, and some of the conservation is just, it's like maintaining old buildings. Like there's a lot of history down in southeast Arizona. That's where the Apache Wars took place. It's you know, a lot of like settler history and a lot of, you know, pre-Columbian history there, and some of what we get to do with the conservation is not, you know, as like non-human sorts of conservation, but like there's an old U.S. Army fort base that was right near where we live. We live at a place called Rucker Station. It's in Rucker Canyon, the southern end of the Chiricahua Mountains. Elevation of about 6,000 feet. There's a lot of pine trees. Beautiful spot in the mountains with a meadow. Nearby there's an old fort called Camp Rucker, and it's now a historic site. And we get to work with a archaeologist from the National Forest. So, National Forest currently, or at least mostly used to, you know, does a lot of archaeological preservation of of places. And so there's an archaeologist who works for the whole Coronado. His name is I'm blanking on his name. But anyway, he comes out. He knows so much about the area. Wonderful guy, Chris. His name is Chris, and he comes down to this old fort with us, and we work on trying to maintain some of those old structures that were part of the fort, and like using adobe, so like mud and building with mud. Essentially, he like takes his pickup and he'll pass by a wash while he's driving there and be like, oh, that looks like a good spot. I can get a bunch of dirt, a bunch of dirt that's like the right size particles, and he takes it out. And we just mix that with water from this little well that's nearby, and we like slap it onto these buildings to try to kind of use the methods that were used at the time to create the buildings. Use those same methods to preserve them. So it may not be exactly how it was before, because obviously we're doing work on it now, but we're using the same methods from before, and it connects you with the place and with your history. To like do this act that someone was doing hundreds of years ago to create this building. You're like physically doing the thing, and then there's a lot of other even outside of just like what we might call like natural preservation and conservation kind of stuff that I think is really beneficial just for like our souls, for like feeling like we have a place in this world and that we're rooted somewhere. I think is like getting that connection to your history. I think is really important.
It is really important. Yeah. The act of preserving. We talked about conservation, and now you're talking about like truly preserving something.
A memory.
Yeah. And the thing itself, you're building, you're working on, or however the trail, the resource is being preserved. And then also you're preserving the skills.
Yeah.
Serving as like vessels for knowledge and experience and these skills that will be passed on to future generations. It's similar to wilderness trail builders, right? In designated wilderness areas, it's illegal to use machines. Wheels are machines.
Yeah.
No bicycles, no chainsaws, no excavators,
right.
No carts, no battery powered anything.
Thank God.
And these trail builders go out and hike 10 miles out into the wilderness with a pickaxe and a shovel and a Pulaski and build trail out there. Just in the same way they'd be doing it 100 years ago, and using and preserving these skills and crafts in order to do the stewardship that's necessary. And it's something special to serve as a vessel for this knowledge. And in many cases, these knowledges and skill sets, why else would we use them in this modern society when we have other modern solutions? Right? So it's at risk of, these skills being lost. And so that's really important.
Yeah, and I think all of them even do have use. I mean, we live in Tucson, and a lot of the houses here in Phoenix are just like classic timber frame houses. Well, like there's not a lot of timber around here, and even some of them are like not very well insulated. Like my house that my friend, my roommate, and landlord owns the house, and he is remodeling the bathroom. Him and his grandfather are doing it. Speaking about passing on skills and the value of that, he's doing this remodel with his grandfather, which is beautiful. And it's this house was built in the 70s. There's just no insulation in it, and we live in a climate that gets up to 120 whatever degrees, and then down to freezing in the wintertime. And so anyway, like I think there's a lot of value in things like knowing how to do adobe. Like adobe is like a very insulative material, and you can just build it using mud that you find in the ground. So I think it's we can get sometimes our society, we do silly things of thinking that we need to do all these new techniques or everything, when then sometimes the right technique is just an old simple one, like crosscut saw. Yeah. And it may be okay if it takes a little bit longer. That's fine.
They'll keep singing.
Yeah, they'll keep singing.
They'll keep singing.
They'll sing a much better song than a chainsaw would.
Yeah, back to Wild Arizona, if we may.
Sure.
And I'll recap the two sides of Wild Arizona that we were talking about before.
Yeah.
They're offering doing field work-oriented projects staffed by a crew who go out there into our public lands and our resources and do conservation work. And so Wild Arizona hires crew members and pays them to go out and do trail work and habitat management and conservation work that we were described.
Yep.
For anyone listening that's interested in serving on an outfit as a crew member, going out there and getting dirty and doing that conservation work, how does one even get into doing that sort of stuff, and how does one that may be interested in serving in that function do that?
That's a very good question. So, I mean, directly, wildarizona.org. But, there's a lot of different organizations that do the same stuff that we do, and I think it's important to note that, like, Wild Arizona is just one of many organizations in Arizona and, around the country that does this. But I think it's interesting. There's not a lot of direct skills that you need, like hard skills, to get into it. At least I don't think you really need that. I think what you need is more of at least like for the entry level stuff. Maybe not like Eric's crew is very professional. Like it's all people who have a lot of experience and work. More solo, but like. And then there's other organizations that are more of a gateway than us, like ones that don't even pay full salary. They pay a stipend. And I'd say we're somewhere maybe in the middle to the upper end of that, but like in terms of how much experience you need. But I think what you need to get into it is several things: a good sense of humor, to be able to deal with interesting situations and monotony and kind of shifting conditions and maybe tough weather, tough conditions you may be working in. I think you need to be communicative because you're going to be working with a team, at least mostly. Able to communicate your needs and to have a willingness to pitch in and get along with different people because you're going to be spending time around your crewmates. You're going to be living with them. So yeah, humor, sense of humor, communication. Be relatively fit, relatively good shape. Someone who looks after their body and takes actions to make sure that the most important tool that you use, your arms and hands, are kept upkept, and just having some outdoor skills. I would say that's pretty. Someone who just knows how to take care of yourself in, outside. Kind of just a bit knows what you know, and if you have travel experience or.
There's always more to learn about taking care of ourselves.
Totally.
When you're subjected out into these dynamic backcountry wilderness environments. Yeah, it's a really great experience to distinguish your needs and learning what care means for not just your body, but your mind and your heart.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And yeah, because there's not, you might be out in the backcountry, you might be out in a wilderness area where you don't have access to a vehicle, and uh, all you have is everything that you've carried with you.
Everything you brought with you in a backpack and hiked out
Yeah.
into the woods with.
So you have to know what you need and be able to make do and make yourself happy with what's out there. And so if you have to know what's important to you, maybe it's your journal, maybe it's a book, maybe it's some pencils and drawing materials, maybe it's a card game, like something that's going to make sure that you're happy. For me, that's often these exercise bands that I can do things to make my body happy. That sounded wrong, but the exercise bands that help keep my knees from being unhappy. Knowing the things that are going to make you a happy and productive person. Yeah.
I used to carry a melodica with me out into the woods.
Oh, cool.
Like a little air piano,
Whoa.
It's like mechanically like a harmonica, but it's a piano that you blow into.
How big
I
was
would
it?
never play it. I'd never played it.
Really? You just had it with you?
I carried it. I walked that thing hundreds of miles and hardly played the thing because
Interesting.
I'd be out working on the trail all day, and you get back to camp and shoot, you're kind of tired and it's ready to eat and go to sleep. And
Yeah.
I'll bring books and I'll read them half the time. But
Yeah.
I've come to learn a lot about myself from, what distinguishing needs, wants, and desires.
Yeah.
And I love playing music.
Yeah. Do you bring any other instruments with you? If you are the ones you bring with you on hitch, I don't think usually when I was there, I was only with you for a couple of days, but
I don't bring much nowadays. I don't bring a stove.
yeah, a stove. That was me. Yeah, it was the same thing.
Too much energy.
Too much energy. Especially in the summer, it gets easier. In the winter, I like having a stove, having a cup of coffee. But yeah, that's how big was the melodica?
About 18 inches long.
Okay, so that's taking up some pack space. That's
It hooks
definitely
up on the
adding some weight.
outside.
Okay.
Yeah, it's always fun to hear what is valuable for other people doing this wilderness work. What is valuable enough to them that they bring out. What's that one item you always bring? Some folks it's like a teddy bear or something.
Yeah.
Or token, sentiment, a picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
And
beautiful.
yeah, great opportunities out there to go out and do fulfilling but hard work out in our natural resources.
Mm-hmm.
With organizations such as Wild Arizona here in southern Arizona, and you all serve the entire state. You have an office in, do you?
Yeah, we're based in Tucson though, and right now the entire field crew either lives in Tucson or lives out of their vehicle. But we are based out of Tucson, our lot where we keep all our tools and our trailers is in Tucson. We cover travel to our work sites to and from Tucson with a rental vehicle. If someone's coming from Tucson or they're coming from elsewhere, then we can either pick them up or they have to meet us there under their own means. Actually, excuse me, that's not true. One person does live in Phoenix right now. But yeah, being based out of Tucson, naturally, where we most easily go to is kind of southeast Arizona, the Coronado National Forest and the Tonto National Forest are the two forests that we do the most work with.
Awesome.
Yeah, and actually even a little bit in New Mexico, on the Gila National Forest, as things like wolves and cougars do not really care about state borders, and so why should we?
Yeah. Yeah, and then let's turn over to some of the campaigns, that side of the house. And so Wild Arizona does outreach and education and other efforts involving issues
Mm-hmm.
Could you, would you care to open up on any of that, describing more about the wolf program that they're working with, or however,
Let me get my notes on this, because a lot of this is stuff I'm less directly involved with. Nico does tons of this, and Kelly, our executive director, is more directly involved with some of that things. So let me first go over this and find this. And apologies for having this immediately ready.
Wow, these are delicious. Did you make these?
I did. I like them. Excellent.
Delectable. Wow, I love that texture.
Heck yeah. I've only so far eaten the dough. Decided to. Interesting. Okay. I'm sorry, I cannot find my notes on this, so we'll be going off of memory here. One of the efforts is to try and maintain the migration pathways of wolves and cougars, via like having public lands, so federally owned lands that are set aside to not be developed. So having like a connection of habitat.
Yeah, so these developments don't serve as an obstacle for these animals to go to and fro. Correct. That sounds complicated.
Yes, and mainly our broad tools for that are kind of the motto of the organization is know it, love it, protect it. And so what that means is, so it is like the broader ecosystem and less human dominated environments, such as wildernesses or national forests, national parks, or just more wild areas, wild spaces. So know them. So if people can have access to, say, south of Tucson, we have the Santa Rita Mountains, and the Santa Rita Mountains are very high. They go up to like 9,500 feet. There's probably it's late April right now, and regularly in the 90s in Tucson, has been for maybe a month now, and there's probably still snow up on Mount Wrightson at the top of the Santa Rita. So there's a very different environment from here in Tucson, and that serves as habitat for tons and tons of very different animals from what live here and some that do live here. So some things like jaguars, cougars, ocelots, black bears, down to tons of different birds that migrate up from Mexico and beyond, like the elegant trogon or the greyhawk, and where's I going with this? So this place, if people can go on a trail that's enjoyable, and they can go hike in the Santa Ritas, they go on the Old Baldy Trail, and they have an enjoyable experience there, and they feel this connection to that beautiful ecosystem, and they see the Chihuahuan pines and the Arizona pines and the different cool trees that are there that do not exist many other places in the world. If we maintain this trail, if you're doing some work there, then people can go and use it. Then they'll love it. So that's the know it, love it, and then protect it. That they will have a stake in maintaining it as a wild space that is undeveloped. For example, there's one mining project in the northern Santa Ritas that was halted due to its impact on some invasive frogs, I believe. But there's another one that is currently going forward. And if the people who live around here have an interest and say, hey, I don't want this mine to exist in the Santa Rita Mountains where I like to go and hike, and maybe have, seen this little coatimundi, some little raccoon-like critter that lives up the mountains there, they will, they'll be told via our email list or our Instagram or whatever, that the Forest Service has opened up a public comment for an environmental impact statement for a proposed mine there. So pretty much they're asking for public input on the impact of what this mine would be. Are people in favor of it or not? And so if someone has hiked there and they maybe have this connection to the place, and maybe they've gone to one of our volunteer events there, that they will say, hey, I do not want this mine was going to draw the water table down or whatever. It was going to use up a lot of the water and possibly starve some of the animals that live there. I don't want that to happen. I'm going to I'm going to write this public comment, or I'm going to message my congressperson or senator and say that you would like them to not support the creation of this mine. So in a very roundabout way, that's kind of the link between the field conservation side, the volunteer work, the trail maintenance, and kind of creating a beneficial user experience, user being just anyone who's out in nature, using a public space. Between that and then goals of conserving these wild spaces that do not easily get taken back, and so I think we should give a lot of consideration if we're thinking about getting rid of them, because you can easily go and build a shopping mall somewhere. It's a lot harder to recreate the Elephant Head Mountain in the Santa Ritas. Yeah.
That's a really powerful mechanism. Know it, love it, protect it.
Yeah, hopefully it somewhat works in some degree. It's hard because it's like, how much say does each person really have in our whole big convoluted system of how decisions get made?
It's a community effort.
It's community effort, right? And you look at like voting blocks, like people can, like voting can have an impact, especially if you organize together with other people. If there's, so I see kind of Wild Arizona being one of several organizations that does a lot of that work, like Sky Island Alliance, like the Borderlands Restoration Network, that do a lot of, or Native Seed Search, that will they'll find out that, hey, there's this opportunity here where your vote or your input as a voter can make a difference, and they send that out to people, and people say, hey, okay, I already know that I care about this thing, and I trust this organization and their judgment of what is the right move, from an environmental, long thinking into the future to our seventh, generation viewpoints. And they'll trust an organization and make a choice based on it. It's a lot harder as an individual to kind of just keep track on everything that's going on politically and just in terms of decision making. And so, organizing that in some way.
Yeah. The world is large and complicated, and any of us as individuals, we only have a limited perception and capacity to understand even what's going on, and Yeah, very powerful. How did you get into conservation work?
Let's see. I mean, I kind of was, I was born into it in a way.
Would you tell?
Just, I don't know. I'm very appreciative of my parents for taking me outside as a youngster, and I am extremely fortunate in that way. We went on 2 backpacking trips before I, was out of high school. Yeah, not many people have our opportunity, so I got this. Well, through that, and then also through my family co-owns a small piece of property in Maine on a small island where there is a small off-the-grid cabin, and so I grew up going to that place. Especially, I was born in Massachusetts. We went there more easily when I was living there, but got to go and spend time with my family at this gorgeous small island, or little piece of this small island in Maine, and live a bit of a primitive existence where we don't have a tap. You have to like pump at the sink to get the water, and there's no power, and there's no Wi-Fi, and there's only propane power, and so the memories that were made there with my family are some of the most precious and I think impactful to me. And a place like that I'm very interested in conserving and preserving. That is a slice of kind of a more ancient way of living, and also of a somewhat functioning ecosystem. Seeing the seals and the whales and sharks out there, and the birds and the osprey and the crab and the sea stars and the kelp and everything that's living there, like having a positive connection to that, and knowing that only exists if there's a community of people who wants to support it in our modern world, because humans have the ability to cause such destruction if we want to. And so like on this island, there's a bunch of people have grouped together, and like there's an island association. There's like 50 different cottages that are co-owned on the island, like meaning the individual's cottage would be co-owned by like several different families, that might go back 100 years. And through that organization, they've preserved parts of the island to be not developed. And so, a bunch of people got together and bought, some parcels of land and just turned them over to the Maine Coast Heritage Trust, which is a nonprofit, another conservation nonprofit like Wild Arizona, that now owns that property and has a mission to not develop it and keep it as habitat, as preserved land for the birds and the bees and everyone else. And so I kind of was familiar with that conservation and saw the positive impact of it to myself and to kind of people around me from a young age. And so this is a very, very long-winded, very looking far back way of answering that question. But more recently, I was kind of always interested in conservation. I was like the kid at 12 years old was like, I'm gonna go essentially be Chris McCandless from Into the Wild, which I'm sure you've read that book. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and which is a wonderful book. And it's a quick aside: a lot of people get a lot of things wrong about Chris McCandless, but. While I no longer want to completely depart myself from society and live in a a tiny cabin by myself in the woods, um, I also see that that's a bit of a colonialist, like white American man, like tale that I think is not really can be not super beneficial because like we all need community and we're I think our best people with community. But yeah, so that was me as a kid being like screw civilization, let's burn it all down essentially. um, I did not get my hands on the manifesto from the Unabomber, but some of the things that he had said were things that I was thinking as a 15-year-old of like we need to bring civilization back from where it is now and kind of de-evolve in a way of like let's blow up power stations and just force us all back to the Stone Age. I now see things as a bit more nuanced, and so I don't want to be an eco-terrorist. I'm not an eco-terrorist. I'm not done some things of that nature, although some things are to seem understandable. But I wanted to live outside from a very young age and like spend a lot of time outside, and that was where I was the most happy and contented. And I got through school. I got through college. Immediately after high school. Grew up in Seattle. Went to college in Wisconsin, and it was a small town, not like Seattle, but there wasn't a lot of like wilderness of like really places that are really not, do not have too much of a direct human involvement. Mm-hmm. Where I was in southern Wisconsin, and I was really pining for it throughout college, and it really had a negative impact on me, I think, emotionally, that I did not have much like access to wild space to run around and just hear birds and flowing water, to touch grass, as some mm-hmm. people may say in today's speaking. After college I looked for conservation jobs, and I had a degree in geology, and rocks, study of the earth, and the science of the earth. And the professor told me about organizations like the Society or the Student Conservation Association, so other conservation organizations like Wild Arizona. And I found a job in Arizona. I was kind of just looking for jobs anywhere to do outdoor conservation work, not really knowing too much what was involved, but I just knew I wanted to be like on the ground using my hands and touching dirt, like whatever that was. So I got an internship on the Tonto National Forest near Phoenix, Arizona, and kind of fell in love with Arizona a bit, and the wide variety of ecosystems and landscapes that we have here, and also the diversity of people and kind of the generally laid-back attitude of Arizona, I would say. Eventually I traveled elsewhere, but my former boss on the Tonto, a wonderful Forest Service employee named Beck Veerman, informed me about an opening at Wild Arizona. So that's how I got involved here. And I've been there for the last 4.5 years.
That's quite a tenure at one spot for a conservation worker.
Yeah, it's not. Most people don't do that much of a time in one job in conservation.
For about 10 years, doing this work. I grew up doing conservation corps trail work, and I never could look forward more than 6 months. Yeah, such a transitory experience sometimes for these seasonal workers running around doing conservation work.
Did you enjoy that? Was that what you wanted at the time, or?
Gets tiring.
Yeah, it gets tiring. Yeah, so now, I mean, you've been with Outslope for 3 years.
3 years, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a good amount of time. And
yeah, Eric's mission there is, and for anyone listening, if I don't edit this section out, check out episode number 1 of Surface Exposure with Eric.
Yeah.
He does a cool thing with wilderness trails.
he does.
And he's changing his mission for Outslope Trail Solutions is to provide the actual resources that take care of said conservation workers. And that involves work-life balance and proper compensation, as this whole conservation world we're talking about has a track record of not properly compensating their technicians to go out in the field and do this kind of stuff because the money isn't there.
Definitely.
And therefore folks turn over a lot and go find other opportunities. I used to be a wilderness ranger with the Forest Service, and it didn't take care of me, much less arm me to take care of obligations or goals. I saved up enough each summer just to get my vehicle working enough to drive back off the mountain before the snow came in each year. Always just looking forward 3 or 6 months to the next gig. So it's definitely a challenge in all of this, and in taking care of the people that take care of our public lands. And Wild Arizona is an organization that does take care of their people better than
better than a lot of them.
Better than a lot of them.
Still, definitely, we have a lot of growth to do, for sure. It's still, I mean, as you mentioned, like it's hard. There's not a lot of funding for it. But sorry, I cut you off.
No, yeah, and within in southern Arizona, Wild Arizona is, has a reputation of, not being the cheap option. I'm not going to sit here and go down the rabbit hole of ragging on other organizations, but some organizations pay less than minimum wage, a stipend, if you will, and it just makes it impossible for people to take care of themselves doing conservation work. Right,
and especially when there's, that's kind of the model for organizations that do that, is that you have a career pathway forward for these people. This is their foot in the door, so to speak, and then they can find jobs with the Forest Service. Well, the Forest Service is just fewer and fewer jobs, less and less funding, and now the situation's worse than it's been in my memory. I'm pretty new to this, but a lot of other people have been in this game a lot longer in their memory too, of people just being fired for no reason, and people. They get into like a conservation corps, and they're paid very little, and then it's like, well, there's no job opportunities forward in the public sector, a lot fewer, and in that job you may be forced to take a certain ideological viewpoint. You may have your freedom of speech limited, in the current state of our federal government. And so I think some organizations, like Wild Arizona and Outslope, are like showing another opportunity that you can move ahead into a private sector job where you're still working on the same lands, but it's more stable, and you're maybe you agree with me that some of the reason I like Wild Arizona is that it's taxpayer funded, which I think is a good model. That I think that having the Santa Catalina Mountains be preserved is the benefit of everybody. So I think it's good that that's funded by taxpayer money, but that there's kind of some leeway in this smaller organizations that we can have an impact on say. Your boss. You have a good, close relationship with the person who where the buck stops there. Or Eric wonderful fellow is, you can have his ear on like trying to make it a good job for everybody involved, and to have, so you get like some stake in your company, and like with
yes, of course, 100%. When I go out and building trails out here in the Catalina Mountains, I build them to the best of my ability because it's got my name on it. The better I build them, the more work I get. That was not a thing when I worked as a federal employee. There was not that stake in it. It didn't matter if it wasn't the best.
Yeah, it's a lot of like the quality of work has often just been like just having somebody who's passionate about it, which is good. That I'm glad that a lot of people in this field are very passionate about their work. There's no one really who's doing this who's not passionate about
it. That's the basis here.
Which can be nice, but also it means that it's often not good. Like
passion doesn't feed you though.
Right, exactly. So I'm glad to see Outslope and Arizona. We're both more expensive for the Forest Service to hire a lot of the time because give good compensation. While Arizona, we have a healthcare plan. There's like food stipends. You'll get good workers who might keep coming back, and they get that's how you gain experience and you gain knowledge and expertise.
You retain tacit memory.
Exactly.
Tacit experience.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm in myself right now. I'm kind of at a point where I'm not a full-time field crew member as I was for 4 years, and I'm finding the challenge with that is keeping up a bit with those skills a little bit, and so I'm looking for other opportunities of like just going and doing the work every once in a while, but I'm also trying to focus on more education of that. So that's also a piece of the volunteer events, is trying to educate people on how to maintain trails, and so that there's only so many people who are full-time paid trail workers. It's not very many, and so a lot of the work just gets done by like volunteers, people going out and seeing a log on their local trail and cutting it off or whatever. And so I think it's really important to spread knowledge of these skills, and Eric does a lot of that wonderful work. He's a wonderful teacher and I've learned a lot from, and so trying to do similar things with our volunteer events is teaching people how to maintain the trails and what it means.
Yeah, would you care to continue on that and illustrate on where you're spending your day-to-day energies in this realm?
Yeah. So a lot of it right now is just coordinating, making these volunteer events happen. So kind of, okay, so like kind of the nitty-gritty of what, like how these volunteer events happen is when, a lot of, like most of the work that we do, like 90% or more, while Arizona does, is funded by federal grants. And so you apply for a grant from this money that's set aside from the federal government or some of it from elsewhere, but 90% federally funded, to do to get paid for the work that we do. And a lot of times, in order to get that money, you have to, it's like say you have a grant where there's going to be $50,000 of taxpayer money to work on this trail. They will ask for some amount of what they call match dollars for that. So it could be $25,000. Maybe it's the same as $50,000 that Wild Arizona has to fundraise and then provide that money. So the whole thing is, $25,000 of match plus $50,000 in the grant, a $75,000 project. And that fundraising can come from, all different sources, but one of the main sources is volunteer hours. So if we host a volunteer event working on the same general project as what, our field crew is working under that grant, then the hours that those volunteers work on the trail is like counted at something like $27 an hour towards satisfying this match of the grant. So it's like a lot of times in order for the work to get done, it has to involve volunteers, which is wonderful because then you, at the same time, you're getting like a bit of here's our crew who comes in and they're paid and they get the work done. At the same time, let's involve some people who maybe live nearby and are interested in like maintaining that, because trails need maintenance. We can come in and like your crew or our crew can be the wrecking ball that comes in and does a lot of work, a lot of really good work, and that is like a big impact. Then it's like you got to come back and just like touch it up every once in a while, and do the regular oil changes, sort of thing. And so yeah, getting volunteers involved with that is I think very important. So currently things I'm working on volunteer wise, in 2 days there's an event in Madera Canyon that's in the Santa Rita Mountains, about an hour's drive south of Tucson. It's a really popular recreation area. There's a road that goes up this canyon, Madera Canyon, and there's a lot of picnic areas and trails that come off of that, and some little guest houses and campsites, and there's a balance there of you don't want people to if there's too many people traveling and all of that entire area walking on it, it kind of degrades the landscape a bit. You prevent growth of plants. You compact the soil and making it harder for water to penetrate into the ground and recharge the groundwater. And it scares away animals. And so there are some areas in Madera Canyon that have like too much impact from human visitation. And so one of the areas, we'll just say that, so the goal is kind of to and this is kind of the one of the tenets of the Leave No Trace school of outdoor ethics, a model of trying to limit negative impacts from human visitation, from human recreation on the landscape. In popular areas like Madera Canyon, where a lot of people visit, trying to condense people into discrete pathways. So instead of having it be that everyone, there's no trails there and everyone just goes and hikes wild various places. This person goes and hikes over there, this person goes and hikes that way, this person goes there, and everyone's hiking a new direction. Try to condense people onto trails, and these trails are maintained to, not be so erosive, to cause not as much damage to the landscape by having everyone, go on these several different trails. And you say, please go out and hike these trails, but, in this area, because there's a lot of visitation, please stay on the trails. So there's some areas there where kind of people have created trails by just, if you go and walk from point A to point B and you do it 50 times and 10 other people do it 50 times, sooner or later is going to be a bit of a trail there. And so that's kind of happened in some places in Madera Canyon, where it's kind of been determined that, it's not a great place for them to walk. It's not, it's causing some damage. Maybe let's have people go be on these more well-designed, sustainable trails. And so anyway, the work there, the actual volunteer work that's going to be done in 2 days, is to renaturalize those user-developed trails. So it's as simple as taking some sticks and rocks and leaves and spreading them out in these areas where people have walked and kind of make it look natural. Something that I think is some of the most fun to do in the conservation or like trail work kind of world is renaturalization, because you're trying to make a trail disappear, do a little bit of like cloak and dagger kind of and kind of try to think about like how would this look naturally, so it's kind of fun to kind of you creating kind of trying to make it look chaotic in a way and have it not look like it's a discrete pathway. So a bit of that, and then also building some structures made out of local rock that we'll just find in the area that have the goal of reducing erosion and slowing water storm water on the landscape, because trails can often capture the flow of water during a storm, or some large rain event, or just when there's a lot of water in the landscape, and that water can be really damaging if it is flowing too quickly. And so that is happening in some of these places on these trails we're trying to close down. So we'll build some little structures, very simple things called one rock dams, to try and return the landscape back to how it was before this increased human impact was happening.
Awesome. Thanks for going into the details of like what some of this volunteer project works look like on the ground.
That's probably way more detail than you were looking for. But
that's awesome. What other volunteer events do you look forward to in fall 25, 26?
That's maybe looking a little too far ahead for me right now.
What sorts of events and places and things we can look forward to?
I can mention one in May that's happening, and also probably will happening in a bit in the fall, is so the Highline National Recreation Trail is a national recreation trail, which is a federal designation. This is a beautiful 55-ish mile long trail near Payson, Arizona. That's kind of central northern Arizona, in pine country, just below a big cliff, kind of called the Mogollon Rim, and recently there was a big restoration of it to make the trail just better to walk on, and now that work is done, which is amazing. It's been a several-year project that we've been involved with, and a lot of different other trail organizations, and now kind of what needs to happen is, we were talking before about like that regular maintenance of a trail. Once kind of a crew comes in and does a lot of work on it, part of that maintenance is just using the trail, going out and walking it, going out and compacting it with your feet and preventing things from growing up in the trail, and keeping the soil compacted a bit more so it stays where it is, and also getting people interested in it, having people know that, like, hey, the trail's here. And if everyone knows, like, oh wow, this trail is awesome, then people will have interest in being like, yeah, we should fund the continued maintenance of this trail. So kind of the stage of this Highland Restoration project that we're at right now is just publicizing it and getting people out on it. So part of that is doing a volunteer event with one of the Ring Country Mountain Bikers Association. They're doing some group rides on this trail. It's a very popular mountain bike trail, or at least has potential to be even more so. And so I'm doing some work with them to actually have their group ride that's going on the trail. They're going to assess the trail for little bits of maintenance that need to be done right now. So I'll kind of like line them out for, here's things to look out for, and then they're going to go and ride the trail, and then report back to me of what they find. And then also going to be doing some. This is in the works, but it seems like it's going to happen. So I think I can go ahead and say that we're working with this. I forget the name of the Rim Country Artists, I think, is an artistic cooperative in Payson nearby there, and so taking some artists out on the trail, and then having them create some piece of artwork, about the Highline in the area, and then publishing that to, again, like, try to create interest about it and get people interested in this trail in this area and have them go out and enjoy it. And then another side part of this is just some more straight getting volunteers out and working on the trail. Is some of the work we've been doing there is those one rock dams I was talking about before that can help to take an old trail that's being closed down and transition it back to being part of the landscape. Kind of remove the scar, heal the scar, so to speak. We've been doing some of that work there for the past few years, and it's kind of an ongoing process of, like, you you kind of build one layer of rocks, and then they get filled in by dirt, and you build another layer of rocks, and those get filled in by dirt, and you keep going until you've filled in kind of this huge chasm that is the old trail that we've closed down. The old trail was horrible. At times it was like 6 feet deep. You're like hiking through a trench. Yeah. So anyway, so there's continued work of that to be done to prevent erosion, to capture water, and to just heal this scar on the landscape. So yeah, just getting volunteers involved in that process and teaching them how to do it, and so it can be continued to be done into the future.
Yeah, and as more events develop, we can learn more at wildarizona.org.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and we have the website eventbrite.org. We have a page there. You can follow our Instagram at Wild Arizona. We have information about all these events that are happening. Some things happening in the Gila National Forest coming up. Doing some trail work there. Recently there was some stuff in the Chiricahuas doing some removal of invasive species. Often we offer camping at these events, and I or someone else, like Najoni or Sam, some other people who host some of these events, or Jonathan, will cook a meal for everyone who's there the night before. Come and camp with us. And
it's hard to beat dinner.
Yeah, get a free meal. Yeah, wildarizona.org. You can get involved. We do stuff all over the state.
wildarizona.org.
Yes. Often confused as Arizona Wild. If you look it up, you'll probably still find Wild Arizona.
Where do you imagine your energies and dedication in these efforts to go? Like, if you could wish for your energies to go into and what to become of them, like where do you see your energies going?
Oh, that's a very good question.
What do you wish for? What would happen? What would you cause?
Yeah, I would say for my part, I want to do more locally. The crew works all over Arizona, and I've been doing that for a while. I kind of want to work on stuff in Tucson and around Tucson, and so doing more of the same sorts of work of trying to retain water, have growth of plants, and maintain habitat, and in Tucson and nearby Tucson. I'd really like to do more of that. I'd like to do more education. I really like spreading this knowledge around and getting to I don't know, spread the word a bit, and also share the skills, and learn more of these skills myself. And so I really appreciate you giving me a platform for that, of kind of talking about what it's all about, because there's a lot of different organizations all doing wonderful things here. I think these collaborative opportunities are wonderful, and that we're all have the same goals in mind here. So I think more collaboration between enriching different organizations, I think would be awesome for my part. I'd also like to say I would like to involve, find more of this through link between like my other life as a bike rider and sometimes bike racer, of like how to involve that in conservation and like create connection, between people and landscapes, and between people and other people. Maybe that existing more in my work conservation life might be fun. And
Let's lean into that. You mentioned doing bicycling. You're looking forward to put on a bicycling event here in Southern Arizona?
Yeah, the Sonoran Ultra Endurance Ride, spelled sour like sauerkraut, SAUER, is an off-road, unsupported bikepacking race that me and my friend Henley host here in Tucson. Yeah, it's a 300-mile route at the moment. We have ideas of expanding it into larger routes that maybe go into Mexico or elsewhere in the future. But I think there's an opportunity. There's a lot of people in Tucson who like to ride their bikes a lot of people like to go and explore our beautiful landscape that's around Tucson. Tucson is surrounded by a lot of really wonderful, beautiful countryside, and I think it's beneficial to get people out there enjoying it, you know, in ways that are expose them to their environment. I think a bike does that, and so yeah, hosting this race, and yeah, I don't know what's gonna be in the future. I like competition. I kind of see that as my kind of avenue that I can contribute. There's a lot of other stuff going on. There's group rides hosted by Campfire Cycling, and there are some collaborative opportunities there. But yeah, there's another group ride bike packing event in the area called El Ruta del Jefe, that are all wonderful. But like, yeah, I was seeing an opportunity for there being a bike packing race in Tucson that people can access easily from town. So that's kind of, I see as like my and Henley's role in that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. You're like connecting the dots between all of this, and coming in with your passion as a bicyclist and facilitating exactly what you just told me. Lining out your mission for. So you just recently did your first annual then?
Event? We just did the first event March 7th of this year, and we're planning March. I should probably look and see what the date is, but I think it's the first Friday in March next year that we'll be hosting it again. You can find our Instagram, Sauer. I think SAUER.Tucson is our Instagram. We had 17 people this year who started, 7 finished, which was awesome to see. We had a really big variety between people doing it really fast. Someone did it in like 31 hours, and someone did it over like 5 days, and then someone did it over 43 days. So, which I love to see, of this bringing together of like people who maybe have that, more competitive spirit, maybe dominant in their lives, like me, and people who just want to go out and ride it and see, do it for, they have a week away from work and they go out and take all that time to do it. So kind of the meeting point of all those people, I think is a beautiful thing. And yeah, so it is March. I don't even have it on my calendar. I came unprepared. It would be March 6th of 2026.
March 6th, 2026.
Yeah.
The second annual Sauer.
Yeah, if you feel like riding your bike for 315-ish miles through some beautiful terrain in not too bad weather that's accessible from downtown, sign up. We'll give you a free burrito and a little medallion and a jar of sauerkraut if you finish.
Ooh.
Yeah. Homemade
excellent.
Sauerkraut.
Ooh, who makes the sauerkraut?
I do. Yeah.
I gotta start practicing because I gotta start pedaling. I like sauerkraut.
Well, I would happily give you some.
That's awesome. And is there a cause that like proceeds directly benefit, or can you share on that end of stuff? Is that a thing?
There's no sign up cost for it. You just sign up and do it. There's some regulations on it's going through some Forest Service land and BLM land that you can't have it. You have to be under a certain number of people, and you can't call it a race. Or excuse me, you can call it a race, but you can't have money exchanging hands. And so we can't even have like, here's a suggested donation to something like Sky Island Alliance or other organizations that help preserve the wild landscapes we're going through.
Interesting.
But this first year was kind of just a proof of concept, and I would like to kind of involve more of that in the future, of having it being an opportunity for education as well. We've toyed around with the idea of like, as you're going through the route, you have to like it's like you have to take a picture of yourself with this kind of cactus or whatever. So you like forces you to a little bit be thinking about the kind of region that you're going through, or um, yeah, maybe just beforehand, even having people from shelter organizations talk about some of the things you're going to ride through there, maybe issues around the borderlands, with people from No More Deaths coming and talking about how to interact with, some of the all the people who cross through that area trying to get to the United States and go through that treacherous journey, or just the conservation of the jaguar, which is you know is difficult to maintain the jaguar's habitat that we have here.
Well, Dexter, thanks for taking the time to chat with me today.
Yeah,
Very.
it's a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the conversation with Dexter Kopas. In closing, I'll leave you with a quote from Edward Abbey's The Monkey Wrench Gang. Hayduke thought, finally, the idea arrived. And he said, my job is to save the wilderness. I don't know anything else worth saving. That's simple, right? Until next time, farewell.